So I was looking around and then I came across this thing, and I always liked the 5-speed all-wheel drive CRVs, you know, kind of rare. You don't really come across them too often. And it's also super fun to drive. So I bought it initially just as a little daily. I wasn't planning on going this deep into it. Yeah, so like I said, I mean, just my Honda roots kicked in, and then first thing I did was I got some coilovers for it, put it on some Evo 8 Enki wheels, you know. That's when the fun started happening. So this thing was really glued to the floor. Another thing was I really wanted the CRV because I love the way the full mark bumpers and the tailgate looks. So we never had that in the States. That was something I had in mind to do right off the bat when I got the CRV. So after that, I guess things started, you know, flowing.
Alright everyone, welcome back to Automotive Anatomy. Today we have Mo. Mo, thank you so much for making the drive and making time for us, man. What do you drive?
No problem, man. Thank you for doing this. This is my 2000 CRV. It's a 5-speed all-wheel drive CRV. Bought it off the original owner, actually. It was 100% stock when I got it. It was about 3 years ago. And then, you know, slowly one thing led to another, and here it is.
and you have some pretty cool pieces, man, for sure. But walk us back to why the CRV 3 years ago. I mean, were you on the market for something else? Were you always looking for SUV?
No, so what happened was growing up, I was a big time Honda guy. Had all the Civics, Integras. My last Honda was actually an S2000. Yeah, going from S2000
That's
to
weird.
CRV. I had a lot of cars in between though. Kind of transitioned into the off-road scene. Got into Jeeps and things like that. You know, Hondas were always in my heart, but they were getting me into a lot of trouble when I was younger back then.
Okay.
So after all the state referee tickets, having my license suspended and this and that, I was like, you know, it's time to be a little more responsible. So I got into the whole off-road scene and this and that, and then, you know, a couple years ago, like I said, I wanted something, I was itching for something manual, little fun toy, you know, and I didn't really want another Civic or an Integra because I just didn't want to go through that whole transition of going back to getting in trouble. So I was looking around and then I came across this thing, and I always liked the 5-speed all-wheel drive CRVs, you know. So
tell us, what was your vision for it once you, I guess, put the coilovers and the Enki wheels, and then how did that kind of go about?
So my vision for it, I'm not trying to build it for competition or anything. I'm not trying to build it as a 100%, you know, show queen. I just wanted something fun, unique, something that you don't really see a lot, something that doesn't catch the eye too much. But it's funny because every time I go to car meets and stuff, especially when I go to like the non-Honda car meets, people wonder what it is. Like they don't know what kind of a Honda it is because they're, you know, from the factory in the US, it looks like a little compact SUV. It's got the spare tire on the tailgate and everything. I wanted it to look more like a wagon, not so much like a SUV. And I mean, it's small enough to pull it off with all the large cars nowadays. So that's why with the rear tailgate with the spare tire being gone, you know, it gives it a more of a subtle kind of wagon look versus like a bulkier SUV. And from the factory in the US, the bumpers are actually black plastic, kind of like the flares and the moldings, and the full mark bumpers with the painted color match theme going on. I think it gives it more of a, you know, city looking vibe.
So let's start with the front end. What do you got going on?
So the front end has the full mark front bumper with the factory JDM fog lights. The headlights are actually depot headlights that have been retrofitted by Evil Headlights. So we're using the Mini D2S, 6K bulbs. The grill is actually the factory US grill. We got the little Mugen bolts with the JDM to USDM license plate converter on the front end.
How hard was it to find these parts?
It was a little bit of a mission. I found a guy on Instagram, luckily. I think he goes by Leo Very. He imports parts from Puerto Rico, I believe it is.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So he does a lot of like the EK SIR bumpers, the full mark conversions and things like that. So I was lucky enough, excuse me, to find him and have him import all the parts. The shitty thing is, during the shipment, actually, all three of the parts got damaged. So my front bumper was torn, the rear bumper was torn, and my lift gate, they dropped it and it was all bent up. So after receiving the parts, I had to do some body work to bring those back to life and then repaint them. And you know, I'm very fortunate that I got to save the parts and still use them after what they went through.
Right. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
That's disappointing, but that's what you get when you're shipping parts.
Exactly. I mean, all the way from across the world, you know.
That's crazy. Now tell us about your suspension pieces. What do you have going on?
So the car's on coilovers right now, Fortune Auto coilovers. In the front we have the MPC drop forks. We have the PCI front upper control arms off of an EK with the spherical ends instead of the rubber bushings. The whole suspension's been redone on the car. The tie rods are OEM inner and outer Honda tie rods. The lower control arms are OEM Honda control arm. All the ball joints are new. The brakes are a custom brake kit made by Brian from Fast Brakes. The front brakes are six piston wheel woods with a 330 mil rotor. And that's actually a kit off of an Integra Type R, because the CRVs, the first gen CRVs, they use the same calipers and the rotors as the Type R. The only difference is the center hub on the CRV has a larger bore, so the rotor had to be machined out in order for it to work, you know, on this knuckle and on this hub. The rear end is.
Did you say this was supposed to be a daily?
It was.
And then
yeah.
you're not trying to do like any performance or competition?
Yeah, the rear brakes are again just a one-off custom kit made by Brian again. I actually don't know anyone else out there with a CRV that has a dual caliper rear setup. And the reason why I went with a dual caliper is because I wanted a bigger caliper in the back for the primary braking, the hydraulic. So the back also has a 330 mil rotor with a 4-piston wheel width caliper. But as you can see, it has a secondary mechanical caliper just specifically for the handbrake. And it's actually made it to the factory e-brake lever. So inside the car, it's all 100% OEM. We had some custom cables that'll go attached to those guys, and it works just like factory. So that little caliper is strictly just for the handbrake, while the 4-piston is the hydraulic main braking caliper. This was the most pain in the ass installation, and the whole process of it was the most pain in the ass part about this car. I mean, it was over like a 2-day labor time to do that conversion. Yeah, definitely worth it to me, man. I mean, you know, in back of some nice C28s, I didn't really want to see the rusted drum. So a disc conversion was a must for the rear end of this car. And unfortunately, you can't really use like a disc conversion off a Civic or an Integra because it's an all-wheel drive model. So the hub in the middle actually has to accept the axle shaft. If it was a front-wheel drive model, you could have done one off of like a Civic or an Integra using the hub off that. As far as suspension in the back goes, we have the PCI spherical trailing arm kit, which was never designed for the CRV trailing arm. We custom fabricated it. It's the one off of an EK. So it has to be a lot of cutting and drilling and measurements and all that, but made a world of difference. We have the PCI toe arms in the back, the PCI rear upper arm. The lower control arms are still stock. Braided brake lines all the way around, obviously. And then going to the back of the car, we have the 50/50 taillights, so no amber on top. We got the full mark rear bumper, full mark rear trunk. The molding on the trunk, I got it painted matte black just to match the moldings on the rest of the car. And actually there's a CRV embroidered in here, which we shaved off. So it gives it a nicer, smoother touch. The car actually has a rear view camera connected to the stereo unit that I did with Apple CarPlay and everything. Yeah, I wanted to go for like an OEM plus kind of a vibe, you know. Nothing too crazy, but I like to have all the I like to have all the, you know, modern amenities, I guess you could call it. We got the rear wiper delete. All the shocks for the latch and the tailgate have been replaced with OEM Honda shocks. And that's pretty much it for the exterior of it as far as I can tell.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell us about your wheel and tire package setup.
So the wheels are 17 by 10s actually. They're CE28s, factory 50 offset, originally designed for an S2000 fitment. The 50 offset didn't work with this car because it's too high of an offset, so it was touching the knuckle and the trailing arms. So after using that 25 mil spacer just to make things work, it fits like a glove. In the back, with the towards the trailing arm, there's probably about 3 millimeters of clearance, if you could see it from the gap right here. I don't know if you get your camera in there, it doesn't really matter, but it's pretty tight fitment. Down the line, I do plan on getting some different wheels, so I don't have to use a spacer anymore. But yeah, the tires are 225 45 17 Potenza RE71Rs. Really sticky tires, works really well with the car. It actually took a lot of work to dial it in for it to be, you know, functional and still have kind of like that stance going on with 17x10s. It wasn't easy to make the 17x10s work.
So tell us a little bit about the interior.
So the interior is primarily stock. So as I mentioned before, I like the whole OEM plus look going on. I didn't want anything too crazy. We got a Momo steering wheel. It's the Heritage line. Spoon shift knob with a 2-inch riser. Spoon rear view mirror. Got the Pioneer dual din head unit, which has Apple CarPlay hooked up to the rear view camera and all that good stuff. Other than that, the interior is primarily stock, minus, you know, the LED lights that I converted from the old lights. Again, the interior was pretty clean when I got the car. It's never been redone, and you know, I kind of just want to take advantage of that until it needs to be redone. As of right now, I'm pretty happy with it. Again, I'm not trying to build, you know, a complete show car. So I like the fact that the interior is pretty simple and just, you know, OEM. One unique thing about this CRV model, which I think is an option, I don't think all of them have it, is the camper seats, which I'll show you right now. So the back seats and the front seats actually turn into a bed on this car, which was an optional thing for the CRVs. I don't think all of them had it.
It's like almost like so this is original Honda Fit with the magic seat and all that
I
stuff.
guess so. This was way before the Fit was out, yeah.
That's cool. What are the future plans for the interior?
To be honest, the interior is pretty much going to stay probably the way it is until it just wears out too much. Might do some different seats up front. I don't know. The interior is really just the last thing on my mind right now. First thing would be the performance aspect of things, and then the bodywork and the paint, and then the interior will probably just wait for the end.
See that case swap?
Yeah, I wish.
Soon.
Yeah, I haven't opened this so long, I forgot where the release is.
Nice. All right, what are we staring at?
So under the hood is everything's completely stock. That's the factory B20 that rolled out the law with. The car has 160,000 miles right now. Runs really healthy, compression's still good. Other than that, we got some Hasport solid motor mounts to just bring the car back kind of to life. We got insane shaft axles in the front. The rear axles are still the factory axles. Just a little cheapy, you know, intake from like Pep Boys or AutoZone, whatever it is. Other than that, the only other thing I've done is the cruise control delete, just to kind of clean up the bay a little bit. But I mean, as you can see, you know, it's all pretty much stock. There hasn't been much done at all to the compartment. Down the line, I do probably want to do a B18C swap, just so I can keep the 5-speed all-wheel drive trans. Yeah. I'm not trying to go for anything crazy like 500, 600 wheel or anything like that. I mean, a B18.
You're smiling.
Yeah. Well, those are the fun stuff. But you know, a B18C would probably wake this car up a lot. Have a nice high revving motor, and then once I get over that, we could just throw a little bit of boost on it and make 300 wheel to all 4 wheels, and that'll be more than enough for me on this car. So I mean, like I said, you know, if I'm trying to go fast, I got bikes. I could just hop on my bikes and, you know, go crazy. But I don't plan on making any insane power with this car. If this car made like 300 to all 4 wheels, I'd be more than happy with that. But yeah, she's still healthy. Me and my wife have driven it all the way up to San Francisco and back before with no issues with this setup right here.
Wow.
Yeah. So she's never let us down.
That's awesome, man. All right, boy. I don't know, man. I don't know your definition of daily / sleeper. It's definitely way different than mine. Tell us about some of the future plans that maybe you forgot about, and any shout outs, man.
Future plans, only thing that I would like to do on the car eventually is get all the bodywork straightened out, get all the little dents and dings out of the body, put a fresh paint on the car. Like I said, the paint is factory 20-year-old paint. Either paint a championship white or some kind of a pro white. After that, performance-wise, motor swap is what I'm looking into eventually. Throw a B18C in there just so I can keep my factory 5-speed all-wheel drive trans and all that. I think that's going to be the most simplest route for me. Shout out, I'd like to give a shout out to Boulevard Collision for bringing my bumpers and my tailgate back to life. I'd like to give a shout out to DreamWorks Collision for bringing my paint back to life. You know, when I bought this car from the original owner, it definitely didn't have any shine. The guys at DreamWorks paint corrected it and brought it back to life. I mean, it looks great in my opinion for factory 20-year-old paint. I want to give a shout out to Leo Very on Instagram for helping me get my full mark front bumper, rear bumper, and the tailgate. I'd like to give a shout out to JDS Car Care for helping me out with the brakes and a lot of the suspension fabrication stuff that have been done to the car. Other than that, I mean, here it is. This is it. This is the outcome of all that. Also like to give a shout out to Evo Headlights for retrofitting my headlights. If you guys ever need any retrofit done, hit them up on Instagram, Evo Headlights. But yeah, that's about it.
Alrighty, Mo. Well, thank you so much for making the time. Thank you so much for waiting.
Of course,
I completely
man.
messed up, and I was 40 minutes late to the meeting time.
No problem,
I'm
Gus.
so sorry.
I appreciate you taking the time, you know, to interview the car. I know we've been talking about it for a while, and we finally made it happen.
Yeah, before you even had the dual caliper set up in
Right,
the back. So, I'm glad that you finally, you waited, and and thank you for the opportunity, man, because this is a blessing for us, man.
Of course, thank you. I appreciate it.
Cannot wait for the future plans, and hopefully you invite us back when you have that B18C there.
Of course, of course.
Thank you so much, man. No short shifter? It goes.
Yeah, it's not bad, right?
That's good.
It's got really short gears.
So it makes it fun to drive.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you take it to the canyons and things like that?